individual, that will probably drive different behaviors as to how we are going to treat our employees, how we will treat our customers, how we will behave in meetings, how we will probably address those people to create the environment where they can be successful. If customers are of value, and I hope they are, how we treat the customers becomes very important. Now, are we saying that we're taking in all the idiosyncrasies of maybe the values of the people? As we ask and talk to our people about what their fundamental values are, I think you will come to the realization that there are some core values which most people hold very dear. And that as we articulate or discuss what those values mean to them, maybe some of those nuances go away because you develop a common understanding. So that, I think, is one important factor. Another important factor is that as you have those discussions, and clearly here in the United States we have so many multinational groups, or I should say multicultural groups, or people from multiple origins that have all moved to the United States, it's important that we in fact recognize the differences between all of the people that work for us, whether they be from Asia or from South America or from Europe or from Africa or from North Asia or Russia. And they're all working for us. There are cultural values which are important to each of them. There are personal values which are important to each of them. But as we look at the organization and we define what the values of the organization are, if I'm from Europe and I'm joining the group and I discuss what's important to me and discuss what's important to the business, at least we have an understanding. Now, just because I might have a nuance of something that may not fit into the business doesn't mean we have to accommodate everything. But what we're doing is coming to a common understanding of what is fundamentally important to the business, and are those same things fundamentally important to the individual. And then the individual has the choice, because there's clarity on both sides, of whether or not they join the organization, just as maybe you've joined some of your business associates or neighborhood associations where you currently live.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. And now we are welcoming Brazil, and the question coming from Brazil via fax from the SENAC in Sao Paulo. The question is, how would you conceptualize a vision in an enterprise that is in the process of reducing personnel?
Well, I think that's a challenge facing many organizations today. And as we're starting to see information emerge around that, since we've been really downsizing many of our businesses now for maybe 10 to 12 years, one of the factors that's emerging is that people have taken their eye off of what the vision was for the business to begin with. And in fact may have, through downsizing and short-sighted planning, put themselves in a position where they now no longer have the resources to achieve the original vision that they had set out to accomplish. I'll just give you an example within our own organization. We've downsized considerably. As an organization over the last 10 years, we've probably lost about 100,000 people. Now, we're a large company to start with, so that's a very large number. In that process, though, of thinking very short term, we actually lost sight of what capabilities we needed to achieve our goal and vision of becoming a global communications business. And in that process, let some of those very treasured resources go. And now have the difficulty of replacing that. So I think it's important, as people are downsizing, to retain what the vision is and what they're trying to accomplish. And if the customer is a value or the employee is a value, that in fact we use those values to help guide our decisions in the downsizing process. And that we can now again, going back to a question that was asked earlier, if we are in such financial difficulty where that's not going to be possible to achieve our vision, we may have to change the vision. But I'd say go do that before we apply all of the current rules that we would use in business with reference to downsizing or restructuring the business, or even re-engineering, as a matter of fact.
Pasamos ahora de Brasil a Paraguay. La siguiente llamada
And now
viene de la
from
Universidad Católica
Paraguay,
Nuestra Señora de la
University,
Asunción
Catholic University in
Paraguay.
Asunción, Paraguay.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Tengo una pregunta
I have a
del señor
question,
Guillermo Orrego de la firma Quality.
and this is from someone from another firm, from Quality Firm. The question goes as follows. Is there any experience as to how to
Sobre valores comunes,
have a commitment on
grupos de poder,
common values with unions and powerful movements like entrepreneurs and politicians in order to have a common vision of social welfare? And that's one question. And then the second question is from the Catholic University. This is another question.
dentro de un programa de
And then
administración
within an administration or management, total quality management program, this strategic vision
como una cuestión
seems to be something of a survival kind. Dr. Hoffmann, do you consider that this vision capability can be conveyed, or can you train people to have a vision? Can you train leaders to have a vision?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I'm not sure that I know I'm not the status of a doctor. However, with reference to vision and its importance for creating a social, and I think you took it from a small entity all the way up to can we use vision in directing social welfare or the entire social structure of a government. I'm not an expert in that area. However, as I quoted earlier from Joel Barker and research that's been done over history, that clearly large organizations or governments without vision, in fact, failed over time, whether it be the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, as I mentioned earlier. And I think any country today without a vision will have the same difficulty in sustaining themselves over time as an independent culture. I'm not sure. I think there were some other nuances to your question, which I'm missing, associated with getting us from the individual all the way up to the social welfare system. But I think that's where your question ended, so I wanted to stop there. The other thing is the vision, values, and strategies are strategic plans and their relationship to quality. Is it a survival issue? I think that quality in some ways has been presented to us as a survival issue and presented for the reason to engage us in some activity to make things better. As I was selling quality within our own organization, obviously the reason for change was that if we don't change, we will no longer be competitive. And so, in a sense, it is a survival issue. And I would say that it's one of the tools to allow a business to survive successfully in the current business environment. Another tool clearly is the re-engineering efforts that are going on. And when appropriate, the right tool can be used to address the right issue. In our journey with reference to quality, we could not achieve our quality without having defined our vision and values and making sure we understood our strategies. Last year I related to some of your colleagues who were on with us that how we discovered the importance of vision and values was precisely our quality journey. We thought we were engaging our people in quality, only to find out that at the heart of quality was the importance of vision, and that without vision being founded on values, that in fact we were doing some of the wrong things with our infrastructure. And so it was precisely quality that drove us and me to the understanding So if that's survival, I'll take it. However, I think it's a lesson that we learned in a very expensive and difficult way, and I hope that you don't have to go through that. But at the heart of quality is really having the vision. In fact, I related as well last year that from a strategic perspective, we, in fact, started looking at our product lines and had to eliminate some because they did not support the vision of the business. And so we removed them, rather large chunks. One organization was about 26,000 people, because we were not aligned with the vision, the values, and the strategies and the execution of that. It was taking energy and resource from where we wanted to go and driving us in another direction. Very difficult decision, but an important decision. And it was one of the discoveries we made along the way. And hopefully it's a discovery that you won't have to make in such a painful way as we did.
Le damos ahora la bienvenida a la
And now we have another call from Mexico, from the university in Mexico. I have a question from one of our professors here. What is the role played by competition in the marketplace as a factor to create a successful vision in an enterprise?
Well, I think competition gives us a challenge. And as a challenge, I think it engages our energies to start to think about the possibilities. As you might recall in the very first story about our sailor taking his journey, we talked about creating the challenge, and he wanted to do something more challenging than others so that he could probably exhibit a personal best, but then started thinking of the possibilities around that and how does one overcome the challenge. So I think that the role of competition is very important in creating a challenge. Let me refer to my own industry again. 10 years ago, or now 11, we were actually a monopoly, and it in many ways didn't have competitors. And because of that, we had the ability, one might say, to not focus on a vision of what we wanted our business to be, but through having excess overhead, excess resource, in being protected by government regulation, not having to focus or refine what we wanted to do, and then how we were going to utilize those resources or engage those resources to achieve that objective. And so competition has allowed us to very much streamline our business, become much more focused, much more exciting to work in. And as if I would have to describe my personal experience over the last 10 years, each year has gotten more challenging, but each year has gotten more exciting. And each year we've become more focused on the vision that we have to achieve the vision that we have and how we're going to achieve that. And we're looking for all of those tools and ideas which will allow us to channel those energies and engage the entire organization. And again, in that process, we had introduced quality, and quality led us to the types of things that I'm talking about today. Many of the ideas I'm sharing with you are not my ideas personally. They're ideas of the professionals in the area. And as a person in business, executing them and making them come to life, I think is very exciting. And each of us has to pick and choose those that will work best for us. So it's probably a very long answer, and I apologize for that.
We have more questions. This is another question coming from Mexico. Good morning. How could a strategic vision contribute to justifying the changes within an educational institution, considering the financial globalization challenge?
I think the role of strategic vision of having the plans to execute what the university or the school system has as their goal is probably, again, being exhibited here at San Diego State University. I believe they have a vision. They've never told me, but I would suspect they have a vision to reach the globe in terms of using the particular media that we're using today to talk about and discuss business issues of global interest. They themselves, in many ways, are faced with economic constraints to accomplish that objective. However, and my 2-year association with this particular group, they in fact have used many different resources or planned in many different ways to overcome some of the objectives in spite of their financial constraints. And this year have actually expanded to Europe, the countries of Turkey and Cyprus. And so I think if there's a clearly defined vision of what you're trying to accomplish and you engage the resources and the mental energy of the people in the organization, they will find wonderful ways to do that. I think also a story that I heard a couple of days ago about a school system here in the United States, just a small school district, faced with some very significant financial challenges, still have as their vision of creating a better community through education. And through that process have actually engaged all of the people within the community as part of the educational system as opposed to just the institution itself. And through that process of working around the financial constraints are still allowing them to achieve even higher levels of excellence than they thought they could in the first place. And so I think there are ways around that, and I would encourage you to engage all the minds of the university in the process, because you can't be stopped once they're engaged.
Gracias, señor Hoffmann. La siguiente es la última pregunta de nuestra sesión.
La última pregunta, the last question that we have here comes from Lázaro Cárdenas Institute, Mexico. We ask you to be brief and only one question, please. Michoacán, Mexico. How do you have to act when there is a selfish management that does not accept the input or a futurist vision of the enterprise coming from the lower levels of management and does not therefore want to incorporate all of these visions to the enterprise?
That's a significant challenge for all of us. There is a good friend of mine who was in another industry had precisely that same problem, and in many ways we have that problem within pockets of our own industry. I believe that I have this firm belief that once the seed is planted and you and your immediate group or the middle management group experiences the power that vision and having clearly articulated values and strategies will engage the entire organization, that over time that those seeds will grow and that the leaders in fact will begin to recognize, even if they're perceived currently as being selfish, that of the power of this in driving the organization. And secondly, maybe part of the responsibility is all of ours to openly discuss this with the quote-unquote selfish leaders so that we might find out they're not as selfish as we think they are. It's just a misunderstanding. So I wish you luck, because it's a significant challenge.
Thank you very much. And we hope that this video conference that you have enjoyed this video conference. We will continue transmitting programs on the latest in management techniques and systems and global competitiveness. We look forward to your participation in the last program in our 1994 Management Systems for the 21st Century series, Benchmarking, which is scheduled for November 17. Before the transmission of this program, site coordinators should send us any remaining required documents certifying participation by candidates qualified for the management systems for the 21st century certificate. I would also like to remind you that beginning in January, we will begin transmitting programs for the 1995 series dealing with management systems, telecommunications, and strategic resource management. We ask that you consult your participant manuals where you will find further information on the programs of each series. I invite you to tune in on January 26th for the video conference Re-Engineering and Total Quality Management Beyond the Basics. On behalf of all of us who collaborate with the International Training Center, I thank you for your participation and interest in today's program. Thank you very much, and see you soon.